welcome back to another episode of Nightly Devotions. So today we are going to jump into chapter 2 of Prophecies Concealed Now Revealed by Perry Stone. So I believe I think it's either 2 or 3 parts out of this book. So if you haven't seen those first 2 parts or 3 parts, go watch those now. So we'll jump right in. Also, you can probably hear my fan hanging out on my desk over here. My air unit isn't in just yet, so I'm using a fan. So I apologize for that, but I'm using it to stay away from croaking. So we will get rolling here. And of course, as always, if you guys have questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I would love to read your questions and do my best to answer them. If I don't have an answer, I will ask people that might have an answer. My mom is a good resource. Pastor Mark Biltz is a good resource. He is the one that wrote this book, which I also have parts on. So I have resources if you have questions. Okay, enough of that. Let's get rolling here. So chapter 2 is called Decoding the Judgment Files. Perhaps the most misunderstood, misrepresented, and controversial phrase in the Christian and secular community is the judgment of God. Reflecting back on September 11th, 2001, when sincere people wanted an explanation for why God would not stop the terrorists, the countless explanations that often contradicted one another demonstrated a high level of ignorance of biblical understanding. Some announced it was an inside job by the CIA to initiate war in the Islamic world. When some Jews did not show up for work at the Twin Towers, the Arab world quickly announced the attack was instigated not by Islamic terrorists, but by covert Israeli Mossad agents posing as Islamic terrorists. Others suggested that in the case of the Pentagon attack, a plane never hit the building but was a pre-planned explosion that originated inside the facility. Some continue to allege that the plane over Pennsylvania was shot down by U.S. fighter jets and did not crash on its own, as had been initially reported. The conspiracies almost seemed endless, and I have my own thoughts on this as well, so leave your thoughts below about 9/11, guys. Then some questioned, is this a selective judgment from God upon America's economy? Did God allow America's protective hedge to come down and give the enemy access to perform evil? Now that is another way to look at it. So that's one thing that I think that we don't talk about is there is a protective hedge over the United States because we were founded by Christian leaders. Not all of them, obviously, but there were many of our founding fathers who were Christians, who built this country on the values of God and the Bible. And because of that, we have a hedge of protection around us because of those values and pillars being a part of our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the whole nine. All of that was done with God in mind and the rights of people in mind. So, because our founding fathers did their level best to create a country under God, one nation under God, just think about that. They did their best to give us a country under God. And I think because they did that and because they did their best to honor God in that, we have a hedge of protection around us. And that hedge of protection can be taken away for various different reasons. I'm not going to say one way or the other what it might be, but it can be done. So I've never thought of it that way. When this question became the topic on internet blogs, radio programs, and even secular cable news, the majority of respondents were appalled at the very idea that God would permit the attack when so many innocent people were killed. One area where controversy and ignorance reign is the understanding of the judgment of God and how and why it is released. So, we've been going over Job at my church sermons. The last few weeks have been in the book of Job. So if you've read the Bible or you've heard Job's story, you know that God allowed the terrible things that happened to Job. He allowed that to happen. He pretty much let Satan do everything he could to break Job and said that Job will never curse me. And he never did. So the idea that God would never do that, the Bible says differently. Okay, continuing on. So 5 important words. In the New Testament, the word judgment is mentioned 76 times with a host of different meanings. One reference speaks of the judgment seat, which is the large bema where the Judean governor Pilate sat when Jesus came before him for public trial. And that's in Matthew 27:19. Paul spoke of a future heavenly judgment where all believers will give an account of their works and words called the judgment seat of Christ. And that's in Romans 14:10. In Greek, this is called the bema, B-E-M-A, a word of referring to the raised platform where the judges sat and where the winners of the games would stand when receiving their rewards. This judgment is in heaven and is mentioned in Revelation 11:18. Revelation is a scary book. I don't know if you guys have even broached reading it, but I have. Wow. A second judgment occurs in the heavenly temple at the end of 1,000-year reign of Christ and is called the Great White Throne Judgment. And that's Revelation 20:11 and 12. In Acts chapter 5, a married couple in the church, Ananias and Sapphira, conspired to defraud the Lord with their financial giving, and the Holy Spirit initiated a judgment where both were slain for their lie. The most noted example of the wrath and judgment of God being released upon the earth is found in Revelation, where John saw both cosmic calamities and natural disasters impacting the waters, rivers, cities, and food supplies over much of the earth. These judgments are specifically identified as the wrath of God. Revelation 16:1. The wrath of the Lamb, Revelation 6:16, and the judgment of God, Revelations 15:4, 16:7, and 19:2. The word used for God's judgments in Revelation 15:4 is the Greek word dikaioma and alludes to a statute or a decision that has been decreed. And that word is spelled Dikaaioma. I don't know if I said that right, but that's the spelling. In Revelation 16, these decreed judgments are being released globally. The word judgments in Revelation 16:7 and 19:2 is crisis, spelled with a K, Krisis, and alludes to a separation leading to judgment. God's judgment can be understood by comparing it to criminal evidence given to a forensic specialist who will examine the details and find proof that can be used at the trial against the plaintiff. The word crisis involves a decision by a tribunal to bring justice after there has been a decree of guilt. There are numerous examples of God weighing a person, a city, a nation, or the world to determine their guilt or innocence related to his laws and covenants. For example, King Belshazzar of Babylon hosted a midnight party where he supplied wine from the golden vessels seized from Jerusalem's sacred temple and praised Babylon's false gods. Suddenly, God crashed the festivities when he wrote on the wall the words Daniel translated, "You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting." And that's Daniel 5:27. Daniel stood before the king that evening and predicted his empire would fall that very night to the Persians, which did occur. Daniel also reminded his proud king that years before his arrogant relative Nebuchadnezzar had been weighed, and God allowed the king to experience a complete mental breakdown that lasted 7 years. See Daniel 4. In biblical history, numerous cities were placed on God's divine hit list because of the evil, perversion, and iniquity of their inhabitants. Does that sound familiar to you guys? Sounds kind of like where we're at right now. Sodom and Gomorrah were twin cities that were consumed to ashes as their iniquities had reached to heaven. See Genesis 19. Jonah was assigned to journey to Assyria and warn the city of Nineveh that their people had 40 days to repent, or else destruction was set for them. See the book of Jonah. The people of Jerusalem broke God's laws, and the city was invaded by the Babylonians. And again, if you're new and you don't know the story of Jonah or the stories of Sodom and Gomorrah, I am doing another book series on this. It's called The Story. And this is the Bible in one continuous story. So all of these stories that I'm covering in this book are going to be read in this one. I am not quite there with some of these stories, but I am in Genesis right now. So if you're interested in that, make sure you pop over and watch some of the videos of the story. I think there are 3 parts out. The people of Jerusalem broke God's laws, and the city was invaded by the Babylonians. Tens of thousands of Jews were sent into captivity for 70 years. Generations after the Jews returned and resettled the land, the Romans occupied Israel. Christ gave a stern warning that Jerusalem would be taken again, the temple destroyed, and the people scattered. See Matthew 23, 34 through 39, and 24, 1 through 3. This time, the reason for Jerusalem's destruction was that their religious leaders had shed the innocent blood of the righteous, including several noted prophets, and that's Matthew 23, 35. Okay. In the future tribulation, the city ruling over the kings of the earth will be destroyed in 1 hour. The world will be in shock as kings and rulers weep when the smoke rises from the devastation. See Revelation 17 and 18. There is a book series that I have that depicts or goes through the end times. I can't remember the title of it, but I've also been thinking about reading through those books as well. They are, I think it's like an 8-book series. And I'm really excited. I want to read them anyway, so I very well might start doing book readings on those. And it's possible that maybe I'll do it podcast style. I'll start another channel that's just for me reading books. That's going to be longer. So I've been kind of kicking that around too. If you're interested in that, let me know, because I could do that with other books as well. Even these books, I could do podcast style with no video. So if you're interested in that, if you'd rather these be in a podcast format with no video, just let me know. Okay. The reason for God's retribution is a vengeance upon this city for slaying the saints and prophets, as the blood of the righteous souls in heaven cries out to God to avenge them of their violent deaths at the hands of the evil men. See Revelation 6, 10, and 17, 6. People who mock or ignore prophetic warnings cannot rationalize why a good God would allow any form of judgment. Even some biblically literate believers think that God, in his love and mercy, would never allow anything bad to occur on earth that would take the lives of many people. Do they not know the story of Noah's Ark at all? Like, I understand that God gave his promise of never flooding the earth again. However, that does not mean that there are not other ways that he could allow mass destruction. And that's just one example. I mean, what about the plagues that he allowed to happen as Moses was trying to free his people? That killed many people, killed the animals, killed the crops, took the firstborn sons. God is a righteous God. He is I don't want to say he's an angry God, but there is a thing called God's wrath for a reason, because he will unleash that wrath if provoked. And we're poking the bear right now. I mean, maybe you don't see it that way, and that's fine, but that's how I see where we're at right now in society. We are steadily poking the bear, and the bear is God, and we're saying, ha, you're not going to do anything. Yep, you're just going to sit there, and you're going to let us do whatever we want to do. Poke, 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 and eventually the bear is going to get pissed off. And then what? But people are so quick to only remember the nice God, the loving God. He is those things as well, but let's never forget that he will unleash his wrath, because we as his people are meant to follow the rules that are given to us. We're meant to follow the principles set forth, the moral code that we have had instilled in us. At least I have, since I was a kid. And we don't do that anymore. There is no moral code, no moral compass. There is no right and wrong. Wrong is right and right is wrong, and everything is backwards now. I've said this before, but it honestly seems like we live in topsy-turvy kingdom. And it says that in the Bible, that everything will be upside down. Right is wrong and wrong is right, and nobody knows what's going on anymore. And I don't know about you, but that's how it feels to me right now, is like everything that I grew up knowing was right or wrong is now like twisted, and you're supposed to just accept everything, and there is no wrong, and it's only wrong if you say it's wrong, and then if you say it's wrong, you're a bigot. And it's like, okay, that's not true, because truth is objective whether you like it or not. Like, it is the truth. You can't say it's not the truth, because what can you fight against it with other than lies? Because it's the truth. There is nothing else that is going to trump that. Anyway, let me get off my soapbox here. This video is going to be 45 minutes long. Okay, so the next section is called Discerning Judgment. The first step is to actually discern what is and what is not God's judgment. During the biblical judgments, the forces of nature are often released: wind, meaning tornadoes, hurricanes, and storms; earth, which is earthquakes; fire, which is volcanoes; and water, meaning rain and floods, along with the lack of rain leading to droughts and famines. The global flood in Noah's time was certainly a divine sentence and decreed by God to purge the planet of the vile corruption that entrenched mankind. The waters covered the highest mountain for 150 days and took over 6 months for the waters to recede. Afterwards, God set his rainbow in the heaven as a token that the earth would never be destroyed again by water. See Genesis 6-8. And I just said that. So it's crazy that that's where this book just went. I believe that one of the end-time prophetic parallels with the days of Noah must include water, since this was the main element of judgment in Noah's time. In the Genesis account of the flood, water was released from above and below. The water from above was the rain that fell continually for 40 days and nights. Genesis 7:4. The water gushing from below was unleashed when the fountains of the deep were broken. Genesis 7:11. These fountains were the subterranean waters under the crust of the earth that gushed forth when the earth's crust began to crack. This created immediate flooding, and as the crust under the seas cracked, the coastal areas would have experienced tsunami-type waves. Currently, we are seeing two extremes throughout the world: drought and floods. For example, in the United States, California has experienced a 4-year drought where the rivers, lakes, and outdoor water supplies are drying up. However, toward the east, the land has been drenched by torrential rains that flooded much of the state. Some areas were hit with 3 feet of water in a few hours. This reminds me of the imagery of the windows of heaven opening and torrential rains pouring down. The second parallel connecting Noah's day to our time is the fountains of the deep sending water through the cracks of the earth to create havoc on the population. This imagery brings to mind deadly tsunamis in both Indonesia in 2004 and Japan in 2011, which did untold damage and cost hundreds of thousands of lives. So the next section is called The Sea and Waves Will Roar. In the end-time prophetic signs Christ gave to his followers, I believe the prophetic warning found in Luke 21:25 might cryptically be referring to a tsunami. There are specific signs connected with the seas, oceans, prior to the return of Christ. And then it says in quotes, "And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring." Other translations of this verse say, "Dismay among nations in perplexity at the roaring of the sea and waves." And that's Luke 21:25, NASU version. And then the next translation says, "Distress, trouble and anguish of the nations in bewilderment and perplexity, without resources, left wanting, embarrassed, in doubt, not knowing which way to turn, at the roaring, the echo of the tossing of the sea." And that's the same verse, only amplified version. And then again it says, another translation is "perplexity at the roaring of the sea and the waves," and that's the NAS version. This next one is the NLT version, and it says, "And down here on earth the nations will be in turmoil, perplexed by the roaring seas and strange tides." And then we turn the page and it says, the 1611 King James translation uses the word roaring to describe the sound coming from the sea and waves. The Greek word here for roaring is echeo, E-C-H-E-O, so it's like echo only with an extra E, from which we derive the word echo. Okay. An echo is not just a sound or a noise. It is sound waves that are reflected off a surface back to the listener. 24 hours after the Indonesian tsunami, survivors began posting their eyewitness accounts of what they heard and saw prior to the high waves crashing violently onto the coastal regions. They described a strange roaring sound coming from the sea. This strange roaring sound may well describe the same noise Christ spoke of in his prophetic discourse. The next one is my own visions of the tsunamis. Before sharing my own dreams and visions of possible tsunamis in America, let me preface my remarks with some important statements. First, in each of the night dreams and visions, I was never given a set time frame in which they might occur. Things you see in spirit today might not actually unfold for many years. And this is weird. So maybe you'll think I'm crazy and I don't really talk about this with like anybody. My family knows. But, well, and some close friends. I have had dreams that have come true years later. It's like deja vu. I will live moments years in advance in my dreams, and then something clicks in my brain and I'm reliving that exact same moment only in real life. One that I remember very vividly was I dreamt of helping my sister get ready for a birthday party in a house I'd never been in with people around me that I'd never met. And it was an 80s themed birthday party and everybody was dressed weird. And that's how I remembered my dream being. And I told her about it and we were like, oh, that's really funny, how weird. No joke. Her friend Earl had a birthday party and it was thrift shop themed because that Macklemore song, Thrift Shops, that song was really popular then. He loved that song. Everybody got things from the thrifty stores to wear out to the bars for that night. And they did their hair in like 80s themed hair, crimped and things. And I, no joke, remember being in the upstairs of that same house, and I met another one of her friends named Brittany that I'd never met in my life before, as well as Demi, another person I'd never met in my life before, that the exact scene from my dream years prior played out in real life. I have no explanation for that other than God. Why that is, I don't know. I view them as ways that I just know that I'm on the right path in my life, because those things are coming true. And just the other night, I had 2 dreams. One that I was engaged, and another one that I was living in the apocalypse. Like, everything, government collapsed, we were all on our own. And these are separate dreams, mind you. Like, they aren't happening at the same time. So I had the dream that I was engaged, and it was a beautiful ring, whatever, super exciting. And then another dream that I was living in the apocalypse times, everything had ended, and we were all on our own. And so I told my sister about him the next day, and she's like, oh my gosh, I kind of hope that you're not having another one of those weird dream things where they come true. Obviously, the engaged one would be fine, but not the apocalypse. So it's a weird thing. I don't know how to explain it other than it's just what it is. It's a gift. It's the way I'm made. So that's really crazy, too, to read that this guy has dreams and that maybe I'm not a kook. Anyway. Oh, whacking my mic. Continuing on. It says, in 1996, I saw a vision of the World Trade Center shrouded in black with 5 grayish tornadoes spinning off the towers. 5 years later, when the planes struck the Twin Towers and they collapsed, I saw those same grayish pillars of smoke moving in a fast spinning motion down the streets of New York City. It was 5 years and 3 months before the vision manifested in the natural. See, isn't that nuts? Secondly, these visions and dreams can refer to a natural tsunami, such as struck Indonesia and Japan, and this is the first interpretation I would present. However, they can also be symbolic of political or economic storms that bring devastation or some type of destruction to an area. In the Bible, a sudden storm can represent numerous types of difficulties. Thus, my first interpretation is to take these literally, and my second would be to say they reveal some form of trouble in the nation. I am often hesitant to share information about locations, seeing that some tend to panic and become fearful and might make rash decisions based upon a warning. However, a person must seek God earnestly and find His will and not be moved by fear or circumstances, as He will never leave or forsake us. He will either give us a plan of escape, as with Lot, or He will give us the grace to go through the storm, as with Noah. Amen. And that's why, I don't freak out about it, because one way or the other, God's going to have us taken care of. And I trust that He will bring us through any storm. I have no fear. And maybe that's weird for you to hear. I have no fear of what if the end times come. Okay, well, they came. What of it? What am I going to do about it? I can't stop it, so why freak out about it? And me saying that is really nuts, because this is not the same person that I used to be even 3 years ago. I was nervous about everything. I felt like I had to plan for everything. And don't get me wrong, there's still that part of me that over plans and overthinks things. 100% that's still a part of me, but I am far more chill now than I was even 3 years ago. So I don't know. It's just God, man. Should I go on to the next section? What I'm at for time here? I'm at a half hour. So half hour in. The next one is tsunamis, 3 regions in America. And I think that's where I'm going to leave you guys, because there's quite a bit left before we get to chapter 3. So I will let you munch on that information and what you've heard so far. And we will be back with another part of this. So yeah, we've got quite a bit. This is all of chapter 2 right here. So I don't want to sit and bore you to death, but that is what I'll give you, because that's about a half hour. So I want to try and be as respectful of time as I can. If you'd prefer longer videos and you want me to just do chapter long videos, I most definitely can do that, but I want to do these in short snippets so that it's less time for you to have to dedicate to sit and listen to them. So I appreciate you being here. I hope that you're enjoying these books as much as I am. I'm trying to get them up as quickly as I can. This last week has been kind of crazy, so I haven't been recording more parts like I usually am during the week, just because it's summertime now and there's stuff going on. So thanks for being here. I hope you're enjoying it. Give me a like. Drop a comment below with any of your thoughts, ideas, questions. I'd love to see them. And make sure that you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you can see when these go up. Thanks for being here. God bless. We will see you in the next one.